ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series What If Deku Had Unknow Adaptability Quirk. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. They say the power doesn't make the man. It is how it is used which decides who they are. It was the biggest lie the world has ever told. People are unaccepting of the unnatural, grotesque, shiver-inducing. How you look and how your quirk functions determine how you are perceived. If it is similar to heroes of legend, then you are treated as their second coming. But if it requires the pain of others or has been used by the evils of old, you are looked at with fear, jealousy, and contempt as they look for every sign you may become what they most dread. Your quirk is quite amazing, young man. You'll be a great hero in the future, Dr. Tsubasa said proudly while ruffling Izuku's head. Izuku looks up in excitement as he is in his own head, wondering what quirk would bring such reaction from the doctor. What is his quirk, doctor? Inko asked curiously. Well, his quirk allows his body to mutate to defend itself from harm. It also allows him regeneration, which I believe will continue to grow as he ages. He'll be unstoppable if he is exposed to the right stimuli for long enough. As the doctor is saying this, he tries to use the needle he had used to take Izuku's BLD. The needle bends as it tries to pierce his skin. The doctor then tries other areas of the body. The result is the same. Mom, can I tell Kaken tomorrow? Izuku asked excitedly. Sure, thank you, doctor. Inko and Izuku then left. No problem, Ms. Midoriya, Dr. Tsubasa replies. As Dr. Tsubasa sits there, he sighs and goes to the lab to study the BLD sample taken from the boy. As he sat down at the desk, he notices the sample seems to be discolored. Perplexed, he decided to pour a small amount into a petri dish. As soon as the BLD hit the glass, it dried. The doctor took the dried sample to a microscope and began examining it. It looked just like normal dead BLD cells. The doctor looked over at the remaining sample in cold storage. They were all dry and dead. Damn, this would have been a great breakthrough in the project. Maybe not all is lost. The master may find great use for the boy. Outside, as Inko and Izuku left the clinic and got into their car, Izuku's excitement wears off and he notices a small letter icon with a red on the corner in his peripheral vision. Izuku focusing on it causes a text box to pop up. Adaptations. Heightened mental acuity. Cell longevity. He didn't really understand the words shown to him, so he asked his mom, Mom, what does achu eat and longevity mean? Wow, those are big words. Where did Izu hear it from? It says it right here. Izuku points at the air right in front of him. Seeing this worries her. This must be from his quirk. I should get a second opinion. That's great, Izu. That first word is acuity, which means how good you are at something. The second word is longevity, which means how long things last for, or how long something lives. Oh, Izu, do you want to go meet Quirk Doctor to know what your quirk actually does? Okay. The ride home continues in silence with Izuku imagining what his quirk could do and how he'd be just like All Might with it, while Inko was worried of what this quirk has in store for her baby boy. When they got home, Izuku bolts towards the computer. Inko, sighing, knew exactly what he was doing. Watching his favorite video of All Might's biggest rescue. Inko then puts away the groceries and began doing some chores around the apartment. She was walking past the computer room. She expected to hear the awe-inspiring voice of All Might, but she heard the sounds of quiet mumbling. Inko peers into the room to see Izuku reading an article. She stood there for a minute as Izuku seemed to not understand something and opened a new tab to search for it. Izu, what are you reading? Surprised, Izuku suddenly jolts up, his knee hitting the underside of the table. He seemed to not notice this as he turns towards his mother. Tu wanted to know more about the words I saw. Inko looks closer at the article. It was about immortality quirks and how they would hypothetically work to keep a person alive for a long period of time, and on the other tab was the definition of biological immortality. Izuku, can you please tell me what words you see exactly? Izuku then recites what he sees word for word. Heightened mental acuity and cell longevity. Do these only words appear after he is hurt? Then why there is no piercing resistance after not being harmed by the needle? There must another reason he gains these adaptations. Okay, honey, let's go to that quirk doctor tomorrow after school, okay? Okay. All right. Do you have any homework to do? You have been sitting here a while. Oh, there was some. Izuku quickly runs off to his school bag to get his supplies. Inko, having carefully checked on Izuku's knee while they were talking, knew he was fine. She has a look under the desk to see if there was any damage. There were scuff marks and a slight dent on the underside of the desk. It looked like someone lightly took a mallet to the desk. I guess I don't need to worry too much about him getting hurt, though Izu not noticing he was hurt might be a problem. Meanwhile, an old bespectacled man can be seen passing through a dark purple fog into a lab. Walking to an office, he knocks lightly to pronounce his presence. Come in, doctor. A cold yet familiar voice calls out to the old man. Yes, master. Sorry for disturbing your rest at this hour. The door opens to a large office. A large desk in the middle and an armchair to the side. A white-haired man is seated in the armchair wearing a white dress shirt with rolled-up sleeves along with dress pants and shoes. His jacket hung around the office chair at his desk. The man sets down his wine glass on a table to the side and looks toward the doctor. No worries, old friend. Take a seat and tell me of what have you learned that needed my urgent attention. It was a quirk, sir. I believe it will be of great use for the inevitable battle with your nemesis. Oh, it must be amazing for you to come here personally to inform me. Do tell me, what is it? It is a mutation quirk allowing the user's body to adapt to any harm that comes to them, eventually immunity to such harm. The younger man shivers in excitement. Oh, doctor, you've outdone yourself. I trust you were able to get samples of their BLD for the Nomu project. The excitement on his face fades as the doctor shrinks away in shame. Unfortunately, sir, there was some complications. It appears that the quirk has countermeasures against its cloning. The samples die within minutes in the bags, but exposed to air it dies immediately. The dried BLD appears as normal dead red BLD cells. The two men sit in silence, planning their next move. The younger man speaks. Have your personnel monitor the child. We will retrieve it when the time is right. Yes, master, it will be done. The doctor leaves, leaving the man to his thoughts. A great tool for both good and evil. An unstoppable, immortal being immune to all the harm you can dish out my nemesis. It will be a great day as I watch you fight an unwinnable battle and perish at my hand at the grand stage of the whole world. A whitish blue-haired child peeks through the door. Sensei, was that the doctor? Why was he here this late? The man looks at the child with a fatherly gaze. Nothing to worry about, child. The end of the legacy of All Might draws near. You should go back to bed. Yes, Sensei, the boy grins in excitement. And that's it for Chapter 1. Tell me what you think in the comments on this chapter. Oh, I'm writing this on the fly. There is no plan. Don't expect anything to make sense and plot holes galore. Expect the next chapter within the next week or so. I have some ideas, so it might be here sooner than later. No promises. Izuku wakes up bright and early, excited to tell Kaken about his quirk. Inko prepares breakfast while Izuku quickly sets the table. Wow, someone's excited. Inko sets down breakfast. Itadakamasu. Izuku quickly scarfs down his breakfast and goes to pick up his bag. Bye, Mom. Have a great day at school. Later. Izuku was walking on the street, absent-mindedly imagining what Kaken would say when he found out what his quirk was. He bumps into someone. Oh, sorry. He looks up to a person wearing a bartender's uniform and a weird metal neck brace. Their body was made of dark purplish fog, and he had bright yellow wispy eyes. He looks like he was just done shopping his bag filled with cup noodles and chips along with a bottle of soda. No worries, child. You should get going. You don't want to be late to school. Embarrassed, Izuku quickly walks away out of sight of the man, continuing on his way. As he was walking, the icon in his vision once again has a red dot in the corner. Spatial awareness adapted. Izuku looked at the words in confusion. More new words. Izuku suddenly feels someone reaching over his shoulder. He quickly turns around and steps back. Hey, nerd. How did you know I was going to scare you? Did you get your quirk? Oh, good morning, Kaken. I did get mine. I think me knowing you were there was a part of it. Well, spit it out then. What quirk did you get? My quirk lets me get less hurt by stuff I've already been hurt by. I also get better faster. Oh, you'll be a great practice dummy. I want to try something. Bakugo places his hand on Izuku and lets off some sparks onto Izuku's exposed arm. Ow. Bakugo pulls his hand away, revealing scorch marks and red skin, which is visibly turning back to normal. Izuku begins rubbing the spot, removing the soot, and his arm was good as new. Wow, you really are a practice dummy. An unbreakable one. But Kak and I can be a hero with this as good as All Might. As if your quirk can't beat up villains. You'll just stand there and distract them until a real hero arrives. Kak and I'll be able to rescue people using it. Who cares about helping people? They can get out themselves. Beating villains, that's what it means to be a hero. They continue arguing as they walk, causing confused looks from passers-by. Bakugo also tries to use his quirk on Izuku again, but it only leaves soot on his arm. The two boys arrive at their desk. Some of Izuku's classmates come up to him. Hey Midoriya, did you get your quirk yet? Before he can answer, Bakugo does it for him. His quirk turns him into a practice dummy. He can't get hurt by anything he's been hurt by before. Also, Bakugo lets off a larger explosion on Izuku's arm, blowing some skin off. The other children were shocked by this, but not as much as watching the skin slowly stick itself closed, leaving a slowly fading scar surrounded by dried blood drops. Some of them gag at the sight of the healing wound. Why, Kakin? Don't be such a crybaby. Look, the scar is already gone. He looks down at his arm. The only evidence of the blast was a few drops of flaking dried blood. Good morning, class. The children jump and quickly get into their seats. Good morning, miss. Okay, now, a little birdie told me that one of you got your quirk. Can you tell me who it is? It's Midoriya, miss. He heals when he gets hurt, and the next time he won't be hurt by it anymore. That's a wonderful quirk. Class continues as normal, though Izuku feels a few gazes on him. He glances at the icon. The red is there once again. Kinetic shock resistance adapted. Heightened eardrum durability adapted. Heat resistance adapted. More adaptations? How do I keep getting them? He thinks through the day, trying to find a pattern which gave him adaptations. I've touched 2 people today, that smoke guy at the store and Kakin. The last 2 sound like it would make using explosion easier. I have to make sure. As Izuku was walking home, he decided to test his theory. Looking around, he finds an All Might impersonator performing to a small crowd. Izuku gets to the front of the crowd. Now I'll need a volunteer for my next show of strength. How about you, young man? He was pointing at Izuku. He steps forward and he was picked up and thrown up into the air a few feet. The impersonator jumps up to catch him and lands on the ground safely to the crowd's cheers. He whispers, Sir, can you tell me what your quirk is? Oh, I just have a minor strength enhancer. Now play along. Ha. I hope I didn't scare you too much, young man. I can't be scared. I'm going to be a hero like you. The impersonator laughs and the crowd disperses. Izuku continues his way home. He focuses on the icon. Heightened reflexes. Slight potency increase. Spatial awareness. Heightened stamina efficiency adapted. Heightened bone density adapted. Heightened muscle density adapted. Heightened mental processing adapted. Mental strain resistance adapted. Heightened muscle growth rate adapted. Must have touched some people in the crowd. There's so many, and the faster muscle growth must be from the fake All Might. Potency? Excited and happy to figure out why adaptations were gained, he makes his way home. Mom, I figured how the new words appear. Really? How did you do it? Izuku begins to explain his thoughts and how he confirmed his hypothesis. Wait, Katsuki blew up your arm. Inko quickly checks Izuku's arms, finding no evidence of harm. His arms feel firmer than usual. Mom, it's okay, it was just a small one, and it healed quickly anyway, it's fine. Sai, okay, I'm still telling your Aunt Mitsuki about this, and don't run into crowds, you could have gotten hurt. Okay. The two have their lunch and prepared for their appointment. Are you ready? Yeah, let's go. The both left in their car and set off to their appointment to truly understand the full capabilities of Izuku's quirk. Inko and Izuku arrive at the office. The building moderately large with a quirk consultant sign on the front door of the first floor. There was also a quirk gym nearby. They walked into the office and spoke to the receptionist. Good afternoon. Are you here for the appointment, Mrs. Midoriya? All right, just follow her. A woman beckons them over with a wave and leads them to the consultant's office. In the office was two couches facing each other with a coffee table in between with blocks, and a doctor's toy sat upon it. A desk is placed to the right of them with a computer and a few document sorters on its corner. Behind the desk on the wall were cabinets presumably full of files. Mrs. Midoriya, please have a seat. The Midoriyas take a seat in the couches with the consultant sitting across from them. With a polite smile, he introduced himself. My name is Okabe Tsutomu, and my quirk is Quirk Mirror. I can copy a quirk by touching someone with my palm. I assume that you're the lucky Midoriya. What have you discovered since you found out about your quirk yesterday? There's a letter icon in the corner of my vision, and when I focus on it, a list of adaptations pop out. Adaptation are added when I touch someone. So you can copy quirks of those you touch? No, just the adaptations people have which support the quirk. They continue to discuss the details of the quirk. The consultant ponders for a moment and holds out his hand. I want to try something. Can I use your quirk, please? My quirk only activates if the person I'm touching consents to their quirk being used. Just say yes if you agree. Yes. Izuku holds the outstretched hand. Okabe sees the icon he was talking about with a red dot in the corner. He focuses on it. Adaptations. Heightened mental acuity. Cell longevity. Spatial awareness. Kinetic shock resistance. Heightened eardrum durability. Heat resistance. Heightened reflexes. Heightened stamina efficiency. Heightened bone density. Heightened muscle density. Heightened mental processing. Mental strain resistance. Heightened muscle growth rate. Quirk strain immunity. I just got one from you, sir. It's called Quirk strain immunity. Okabe looks lost as he processes this. It made sense. He has never experienced quirk strain while using someone else's quirk, let alone his own. He starts to explain what effects that these adaptations could have on Izuku. The most shocking was cell longevity, with the potential to make him biologically immortal, and with the adaptive side of the quirk, maybe full immortality. Midoriya, can you sit by my side and Miss Midoriya pick up one of the blocks and throw it at me? Izuku stands and sits at Okabe's side. Okabe closes their eyes and nods to signal that he is ready. Inko lightly tosses the block to the left of Okabe at the empty spot on the couch. As the block was getting closer to the couch, Okabe quickly catches it with his left hand and opens his eyes. So that's how that feels. One more test, throw it one more time. He lets go of Izuku's hand and Inko repeats the action. He holds his hand up in the trajectory of the block. The block hits his hand and loses all momentum, falling straight down onto the table, bouncing into the other blocks. In shock, he whispers, "Is it permanent?" He collects himself. Midoriya, can you tell me who you got these adaptations from? Izuku began telling him where he got his adaptations: his mom, Dr. Tsubasa, Fog Person, Kaken, unknown people in a crowd, an All Might impersonator, and finally the consultant himself. Okay, I think I can summarize his quirk. It is a quirk which allows his body to adapt so that it is no longer affected by a harmful stimuli, and has the ability to copy adaptations of other quirk users by touch. Okay, I'll remember that. Oh, you have yet to record your quirk into the system. I have a suggestion if you wouldn't mind. What is it? Don't put the full description of the quirk into the system. Why? I've had people I've consulted go missing after coming here. I don't know if this is the work of quirk supremacists or the Hero Public Safety Commission, but I do know they have access to the full undoctor quirk registry. I suggest you put only part of it in, mainly the adapting from harm along with minor regeneration. Name the quirk reactive mutation as to not cause suspicion. This might not keep all surveillance off you, but you'll be lower on their list. Inko has a worried look on her face as Izuku has a confused face looking for Inko to make a decision. I'll keep that in mind, Tsutomu-san. Inko and Izuku get up to leave. By the way, I'm sure you've noticed the quirk gym nearby. You should sign him up. He might be able to gain more adaptation safety there. Oh, alright. Thank you for your time, Tsutomu-san. Bye, Mr. He'll be a hero one day with potential that he'll surpass All Might sooner than later. Inko and Izuku left the office. Izuku suggests that Kaken join him to go to a quirk gym, but Inko informs him that Katsuki doesn't like going because it was boring. They got into their car, went to the government office to register his quirk as the consultant suggested. They got a few weird looks as Izuku tried to get closer to some of the adults in line. Potency increased. Heightened mental processing. They then went to a quirk gym nearby their home to get Izuku a gym membership. After that they went home. Life continues as normal for a few months. School was fine though other students seems to be avoiding him except for Bakugo, who has been getting aggressive, launching larger and larger explosions at Izuku, though it only makes his skin slightly red and dirty. Izuku has been going to the gym during this time. He has been breaking record after record of physical abilities for his age. There was also many different quirks there he hadn't seen before. Reduced muscle decay rate adapted. Heightened flexibility adapted. Heightened stamina regeneration adapted. Potency increase. Heightened stamina efficiency. Potency increase. Heightened bone density. Potency increase. Rapid muscle growth. Potency increase. Heightened muscle density. Potency increase. Heightened reflexes. The name changed? Is it better now? There were a few times Bakugo had been hurting someone with Izuku jumping into the blast to protect them and coming out unscathed though which his clothes trashed. Inko was not happy about that. Are you okay? Why did you save me? I'm quirkless. Izuku was surprised by this. He hadn't met a quirkless person before. Why? Because that's what heroes do. It doesn't what you are. A hero will always be willing to save you. Izuku helps the boy up. Physical adaptation limiter removed. What? Izuku, after helping the kid up, he gave him a few words of encouragement and went home. Along the way his mind was spinning with questions on what the pop-up meant. Physical adaptation limiter removed? Did he have a quirk? It might mean that there was a limit to the amount of adaptations I could get from others, a limit to the potency of the adaptation, or a limit to the harm that can be negated. Izuku couldn't be sure as he hadn't hit a limit to any of those. For all he knew, it was all three. He wouldn't be able to tell. If the is one, then I'll get to it eventual. Years pass in relative normalcy. He had become the strongest person at his gym, being able to pick up every weight in the building with relative ease, though that's not saying much as all weights in the building add up to around 5 tons. His trainers have told him to go to better equipped gyms to keep improving, but he didn't want to as it was too far away from home, and besides he's been coming by to encourage and help the newer members train. His time there had been quite fruitful. Potency increase, plus photographic reflexes. Potency increase, spatial awareness. Potency increase, plus immense muscle density. Potency increase, plus immense muscle growth. Potency increase, plus muscle decay immunity. Potency increase, plus immense bone density. Potency increase, plus immense flexibility. Potency increase, plus immense stamina efficiency. Potency increase, plus immense stamina regeneration. Some of the upperclassmen have decided to test their mettle against the immovable wall of Aldera, as the school calls him. Flashback. Izuku knew he was being followed, so he led them to a secluded area under a bridge. He stopped as he watched the group slowly and wearily surround him to prevent his escape. They stood just out of arm's reach, fully focused on their target, their white whale. Wow, quite the entourage you've gathered for little ol' me. Before we begin, if anyone was forced into this, get out of here. A few scared-looking ones in the back turned tail and ran. This was not the first time they had attempted a group assault, though there are some people from other schools in the group this time. Izuku looked around with an almost bored look, with his arms outstretched. All right, everyone knows the rules. You all get a free hit in. Come on. Without a word, they rushed in. We've done this many times now, though they've started to incorporate raid boss tactics. At least they're improving. Even with my adaptation and training, my physique seems to grow at a normal rate for a child, so I'm small enough that only 3 people can engage close range. Their plan was good, but not good enough. After a few minutes it was over as they lay there with bruised bodies and dirted clothes. They don't give me challenge me anymore. They don't even increase the potency of my adaptations. Bakugo had joined in on a few of these brawls in the beginning, both with and against me. He quickly stopped joining because he and I, quote, don't need those extras to kill you bait. I let him tire himself out. He's never truly been able to hurt me after the first time in Aldera Elementary, though the adaptations I got from him were becoming very potent. Thought their names have yet to change like the others. School for Izuku had been fine. Always the top of the school academically, though never paying too much attention in class, which infuriate the teachers to no end, but they can do nothing. Bakugo, as always, wanted to throw down after result day. Other than that, life was normal, until one day something peculiar happened. Something he never thought possible. One night he had a vivid dream of a white-haired man with red eyes and a suit standing with him in a void. Flashback. Kurogyri, are you prepared? Yes, master. A dark purple portal opens up as the white-haired man walks through to a child's bedroom. He reaches out his hand and places it on the child's head. He then found himself in a dark void around him, the representations of the quirks he holds as orbs. He then looks toward the child, which was floating serenely. As he gets closer to him, a few of the orbs around him suddenly rushed to the boy and began orbiting around him. He ignored this, believing it was of no consequence. When he got close enough to touch the boy, he saw his own quirk, all for one, beginning to phase out of his hand and into the boy. He tries to pull his hand back, but that slowly rips the quirk in two. This causes immense pain to him, but he keeps pulling, not wanting to lose more than he has. Kurogyri, evac. A dark purple portal appears under all for one's body, teleporting him back to base. He sees his separated quirk go into the boy, along with many of his quirks not coming with him. As he landed, he opens his eyes with a gasp, struggling. He speaks. Call the doctor. The doctor appears after a few minutes, and seeing the state of his master, he brings him to the lab. He is placed into bed as devices are hooked up to him to monitor his condition. Bring me the backups. Kurogyri portals in a lump of flesh, and all for one places his hand on it to recover the quirks he lost. He tries and he tries again. His heart drops. He looks into himself to assess the damage. The orb which represents his quirk was cracked and smaller. A lot smaller. It looked to be about 1/5 the size it once was. He looks over to the other orbs. There were only 20 left, thankfully nothing too important, not including some of the more powerful quirks, and the quirks of the previous users are gone. He didn't know the true effects of the separation until he can use the other quirks safely. A shame, but nothing he can't live without. Master, did you retrieve your quirks? No, doctor. That quirk is a different beast. Now, with most of all for one taken by it, there's no telling what it would allow that boy to do. He must be brought to our side. The next morning, Izuku wakes up tired, and with a pounding headache which quickly clears within the next few seconds, he opens his eyes to see multiple pop-ups. Quirk removal prevention protocol activated. Disarming intruder. 90% incomplete. Storage. Complete. Integration. Error. Partial integration. Success. Quirk storage unlock. So that wasn't just a dream. He looks over in the corner of his vision and sees an icon of the letter Q above the envelope. He focuses. Danger sense. Impact recoil. Float. Kinetic booster. Ultra strength enhancer. Dual mental processing. Lie detector. Quirk sight. Regeneration. All for one. Who wanted to steal my quirk? Is that even possible? Then why would a protocol activate? Are there more protocols? Do they only activate when my quirk is at risk? Are these the quirks that they have stolen before they tried to take mine? Questions upon questions piled in his head, trying to figure out this new facet of his quirk. Unconsciously, he begins floating off his bed. Izuku, breakfast is red. How are you flying? Brought out of his crisis, he fall back into bed. They are both silent for a second. He looks up at Inko. Someone might have broken in last night. Inko and Izuku are outside of their apartment as the police have cordoned it off to gather evidence. A police officer is taking their statement. What did the intruder look like? He had white short hair, red eyes, and he was wearing a suit. Their eyes widened, and they spoke into their radio. Code 9191. Miss Midoriya, can you two please come down to the station? You are not being arrested. Truth. So that's how lie detector works. The Midoriyas get into the police car. On the way, Izuku decides to check on his adaptations. Unlimited quirk storage adapted. Quirk factor mimicry adapted. Highly resilient cells adapted. I guess bodies don't change to accommodate foreign quirks. Later, Izuku is in an interview room with a giant two-way mirror on the wall. In front of is sat a detective with a notepad. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. My name is Naomasa Tsukachi. My quirk is lie detection. Can you please tell me what exactly happened last night? True. Izuku activated quirk sight when he heard what his quirk was. His eyes shimmer slightly, which the detective noticed but ignored. His quirk was navy blue and feels similar to the one he has, though it was much better. He looked over to the mirror and saw his own quirk. It looked like a golden silhouette with multicolored dots on his chest. Around his head were white orbs which were slowly orbiting. Some were almost disappearing, and a few were a few centimeters away from his head. Behind the mirror he saw his mother, a smaller person, smaller than him, and a large muscular person whose quirk was most interesting. His quirk was like his own, a golden silhouette, though it seemed to be pushing against the skin of the person. They had 6 orbs flowing around his body. He looks back at the detective. I was sleeping when I appeared in a void floating. The intruder was standing a few feet away from me with floating orbs around him. Some of the orbs flew towards me and began orbiting around my body. As the man got closer, he tried to place his hand on me, but emerging from it was a dark red and black orb. He tried to pull away, but the orb resisted. He pulled until he ripped it apart, and I fell unconscious. True. The detective is silent for a moment, processing the information. Did they do anything to you? Izuku pauses before he answers and looks over to the mirror. The 2 people with my mom, can they be trusted? True. The detective was shocked by this. I trust them with my life. Truth. Could you call them in? The detective agrees and leaves to get them. As Izuku watches through the walls following their quirks. After a minute, the detective returns. All Might. Izuku was excited to finally meet All Might, though he collects himself as he realized how serious this was with All Might here. I'll assume you know who our number 1 is. The other one is. Am I a dog, a mouse, or a bear? No. I'm Nizu, principal of UA. Truth. He reaches his hand out. Izuku shakes it. Heightened brain nerve density adapted. I'll repeat the question again. Did the intruder do anything to you? Izuku looks over to his mom. Inko's eyes widen in realization and acceptance. Before I need to explain my quirk, it's called reactive mutation. It changes my body to be less affected by all harm, and it comes with a healing factor. True. Midoriya, your quirk is great, perfect for a hero, but what does this have to do with what happened? The detective asked. My quirk is a lot more than just defense. It gave me a UI with an envelope icon in the corner of my vision. Focusing on it causes a screen to pop up, contain adaptations, but only those which I have gained by touching others. The 3 were surprised by this. Nizu speaks up. Did you get any from me? Heightened brain nerve density is what I got from you, sir. Nizu sits back thinking deeply. Izuku continued. Which brings me to this morning. A series of pop-ups appeared in my vision. The first reads, Quirk Removal Prevention Protocol activated. A wave of dread washes over the 3. That had confirmed that All for One had been making moves. It was followed by disarming, which stopped at 90%, then storage, which was complete, integration, which failed, and it tried again with partial integration, which succeeded, and one final pop-up which stated Quirk storage unlocked. True. All for One had made a mistake, a massive miscalculation, one he could never see coming. Another quirk which was immune to it, and a threat to All for One. Quirk storage? Did you get quirks from him? Nizu asked. I believe I did. Let me write it down for you. Quirk. Danger Sense. Impact Recoil. Float. Kinetic Booster. Ultra Strength Enhancer. Dual Mental Processing. Lie Detector. Quirk Sight. Regeneration. All for One. I assume the last one is from the intruder, as I saw him rip his quirk apart. True. This was a revelation. Not only did he fail in taking the quirk, he was more than likely greatly weakened by the encounter. One of the quirks of the previous users were even in his possession. Do you know who broke into my room last night? You guys have been making faces knowing that my quirk was not taken. Yes, we do, young Midoriya. The man who had tried to take your quirk is called All for One, same as his quirk. His true name has been lost to time. He has been around since the dawn of quirk using an unknown longevity quirk. He has ruled over the criminal underworld since he came into power all those years ago. Him trying to take your quirk means he prepares even now for our encounter. Izuku almost didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there in front of him as a list of quirks of people he did not know. Mrs. Midoriya, I believe it would be best if you both be moved into UA for the foreseeable future. How would Izuku go to school? Are heroes going to escort him? That would be inefficient as it wastes manpower, and I believe he would soar further under my personal tutelage. A sudden shudder runs through the staff at the prestigious academy. Oh no, he's found a successor. Back at the station. Inko ponders the decision, but decides agree for Izuku's safety. All right, both of you can rest in the employee lounge while I get things ready. The Midoriyas stand up, and we're being lead out by the detective. All Might reaches out his hand to Izuku's shoulder, desiring to reassure him that the villain will be brought to justice. As his hand contacts Izuku, the both of them fall unconscious. All Might was caught by the detective while Izuku by his mother, with All Might still holding on tight. Nizu instructs them to carefully maneuver them to the lounge without separating them, as Izuku's quirk is not fully known. Izuku awakens in the void once more, this time more lucid. He looks around and finds All Might. Is this what All for One saw? All Might was shocked to see the orbs mentioned by Izuku floating around him. Behind All Might was a woman Izuku had never met before. Tashinori? All Might quickly turned around. Master? The woman pulls him into a hug, which is reciprocated. I'm sorry I couldn't stay for a while longer to full train you. I'm proud of the man you've become. This bring him to tears. They hug for a while as the woman looks up towards Izuku. I guess you're ninth. A confused look comes across his face, followed by hers. She stopped hugging All Might as Izuku asked, Who are you? What is this place? I'm Nana Shimura, the 7th holder of One for All, and this place is the Vestige realm. Truth. One for All? Are you related to All for One? Tashinori really didn't tell you anything about One for All before giving it to you. How are you here if not by receiving the One for All? I was here before, when All for One tried to take my quirk. He failed, and for his troubles my quirk decided to deal with him by removing some of his quirks and taking most of his own. I don't believe that this is your Vestige realm of One for All, it's mine. The orbs around Izuku fanned out and began forming into humanoid shapes. Many of them adults with some children, but the most important was a clone of Nana to his right. Vestige Nana gets closer to the clone. As they are about to touch, the clone returns to its previous form and flies directly into Izuku. Quirk assimilation. Float flight. The pop-up appears above and in front of Izuku. Nana and All Might stare at the text in disbelief, debating with themselves what the change of name meant. Izuku ponders for a moment on the same issue, but decided to deal with it once he left whatever this please was. Shimura, do you recognize anyone else here? She looked at the others she had not paid attention to. All other One for All users were there, excluding the 1st and 8th. Out of all of them, 4th was most recognizable. 4th? A vestige of a man with a black line across his face looks over at her. How do you know of that? He was weary of here. The only thing that was the 4th of was his responsibility, his promise to keep the key to victory safe. I'm Nana Shimura, the 7th holder of One for All. I had met a version of you stored in One for All as I was. He sighs in relief, knowing not all is lost. Has that version of me told you of the consequences of holding One for All? Yes. All Might interjects. What do you mean consequences? What would happen if I had passed it on? When I held the quirk, I tried to hold on to it and train until I could face All for One. But after years of this, my body began deteriorating quickly. Thankfully, I was able to find a successor. I died at the age of 40 with my body crumbling as All for One found me. Then why hasn't my body been deteriorating? I'm already past 40. Me and the other users have discussed this. There is a difference between you and 4th. You were quirkless. Think of quirks like water and a body, a cup. When someone has a quirk, their cup is filled to the brim, and if another quirk is added to it, the cup overflows and cracks as the spilled contents try to return into it. Dread falls on to All Might, knowing he would have gave his successor an early grave. Which means I must find a quirkless successor. Or someone with a quirk which counteracts the effects. What do you mean, young Midoriya? The three look over to Izuku, desiring an explanation. As you know, my quirk allows me to adapt and recover from any harm that comes to me. If I were to receive One for All, I would become immune to its effects over time. 4th, how long were you in possession of the quirk? Around 18 years. And since All Might has held on to it for so long, anyone else who would hold the quirk would live for another 6 years. A silence falls upon the group as All Might truly comprehends the gravity of what curse he would have brought to his successor. Izuku then realized something. Wait, if all quirks have vestiges, then where is All for One's? You. The group looks over to the vestige of All for One, and the holders ready themselves to defend Izuku, but as it took a step, malicious will detect it. Removing. What? No, No. Complete. The group looked on shock as the vestige of all for one began to quickly dissipates in screams of anger and fear, and turns into a red orb surrounded by lightning. All Might, I think we should get back. They might be getting worried that we were gone for a while. Yes, young Midoriya, there is much we must discuss with Nizu, Tsukachi, and your mother. Tsukachi? An older-looking vestige piped up. They look over to him. Who are you? Seiko Tsukachi. I was killed by all for one after he took my quirk lie detector. You know of my descendant? What is their name? Naomasa Tsukachi. The vestige sighs in relief. My grandson. Thank God he's okay. The vestige returns to an orb and flies straight to Izuku. Quirk assimilation. Lie detector fact or fiction. Appears once again. Okay. Is there anyone else who is recognizable? They try to say anything to get a response from the rest of the vestiges to no avail. They return to orbs and orbit Izuku. All right, I guess we're done here. Hopefully my being here has allowed you to speak to All Might privately. I hope so too. Izuku opens his eyes. He was laying on couch with Inko holding his hand, and she seeing this pulls him into a hug. Is you okay? What did All Might do to you? He didn't do anything, his quirk is just weird. Izuku looks at an unconscious All Might. He should have woken up at the same time. This doesn't last long as All Might wakes up and slowly sits up with a somber look. We need to get to UA. Nizu immediately leads the Midoriyas and Tsukachi to a car, and the set off to the most prestigious hero school in the country. They arrive at the entrance to UA, and standing at the gate was a tall, bespectacled man with green hair with 3 streaks of yellow in a gray suit, and with him was a short old man in a yellow and white hero costume and a black domino mask. All Might shivers slightly at the sight of him. The car stops, and All Might gets out to greet them. Mirai, Torino-sensei, why are you here? I ain't got a clue. This oracle barged in and told me to come with him and that it was important. Fact. It works the same? There has to be something different. All Might, why are those two here? These are the Midoriyas. They had encountered him. We need to get inside. Seeing the uncommonly serious face on All Might, Mirai stays silent. Nizu then leads the group to a secure meeting room. As they were walking, Izuku realized who the tall man was. He was Mirai Sasaki, or better known as Sir Night-Eye, All Might's sidekick. In the meeting room, they all sat down except All Might, and he begins. I think it's best we start from the beginning, Detective. Tsukachi recounted from the time he received the code for potential quirk theft. As the recounting went on, he was corroborated by All Might and Nizu. The Midoriyas were about to leave the room when All Might had tried to touch Midoriya's shoulder, after which they both passed out. Midoriya and All Might should continue as even Nizu, and I don't know what had happened. The two then told the group of their time in Izuku's quirk realm, as he called it. He was supported by All Might and the detective, who confirmed that his words were truth. The group were speechless, especially Tsukachi, as he has confirmation that his grandfather had died to protect them. Torino was emotional knowing Nana was still with them in spirit, and Mirai was contemplating Izuku's confusing yet powerful quirk. Mirai speaks first. What quirk and adaptations do you currently have? Can you list them out? Izuku was given access to the computer of the projector as he typed out the list. Quirks. Danger Sense. Impact Recoil. Flight. Kinetic Booster. Ultra Strength Enhancer. Dual Mental Processing. Fact or Fiction. Quirk Sight. Regeneration. All for One. Adaptations. Heightened Mental Acuity. Cell Longevity. Spatial Awareness. Kinetic Shock Resistance. Heightened Eardrum Durability. Heat Resistance. Photographic Reflexes. Immense Stamina Efficiency. Immense Bone Density. Immense Muscle Density. Immense Mental Processing. Mental Strain Resistance. Immense Muscle Growth Rate. Quirk Strain Immunity. Muscle Decay Immunity. Immense Flexibility. Immense Stamina Regeneration. Unlimited Quirk Storage. Quirk Factor Mimicry. Highly Resilient Cells. Heightened Brain Nerve Density. The group looks at the projection in shock. From what they could see, this child had enough firepower to possibly take down All Might alone, and with how he gains more and stronger adaptations, he would be a perfect counter for any opponent. Nizu was most curious of the assimilated quirks, especially fact or fiction. Midoriya, All for One has agents in the HPSC. Fact. Fact. I knew it. The others sit and contemplate the information as another statement is thrown out. All for One has been weakened by his encounter with Izuku Midoriya. Fact. Tsukachi began writing these down in a notepad. All for One has known of Izuku's quirk as soon as he received it. Fact. That's worrying. The MLA has been disbanded since the capture of Destro. Fiction. This continues for the next few hours as the heroes gained confirmation on some ambiguous outcomes of previous villain encounters and some of their suspicions. They had pinned All for One's location to the outskirts of Japan on the unpopulated Hashimi Island. The accommodations for the Midoriyas were prepared during the meeting, and they were allowed to excuse themselves. The Midoriya leave to rest while the heroes continue discussing the coming raid. That bastard may be weakened, but he could have an ace up his sleeve we can't predict. He won't get the chance to use it. The plan is to surround the island and capture any escaping goons we find, and All Might comes in once All for One is located by Midoriya. He uses his most powerful attack and incapacitate him. I'll see if the authorization to eliminate him is still in effect. All Might, I believe you should pass on One for All as a precaution. I would recommend the boy, but I don't know of his nature. He might be the best shot to eliminate All for One if it comes down to it. Toshinori, what did Nana say to you before you woke up? She said she felt the hold of One for All my body had was weakening, being drawn to young Midoriya and to trust in the will of One for All. We have a week until the raid. Get to know him and make your decision. The meeting ended and the heroes returned to their duties. At night, All Might lays in bed, hand on his stomach, mulling over the decision. Master, what do I do? He falls asleep and finds himself in the Vestige realm of One for All. It looked like a concrete room with thrones, and the vestiges of the past sighting upon them, though two of them seems to do it begrudgingly, not looking at him in the eye. Toshinori, you're here. Nana gets up to hug him. Hello, 8th. I am Yoichi Shigaraki, the first holder of One for All. You have a big decision to make, to choose the 9th holder. All Might looks at the scrawny, long, white-haired man. Yes, I don't know what to choose, to give One for All as precaution, or to hold on in belief that all will go as planned. Can you guarantee that you will survive your fight with All for One? All Might thinks for a moment. No. Then the choice is obvious. Observe Midoriya and determine if he is the right choice. If not him, then you must find another quirkless to take his place. All Might nods. Now our fated encounter with my brother draws near. The meeting of that boy's quirk with One for All has brought it to singularity. We have all agreed to allow you to use our quirks. All Might's eyes widen at the implications of this. He would be able to use all the quirks of the previous users. He bows in gratitude. Thank you. Tomorrow, when you meet with the boy, enter his quirk realm. We will teach you there. All Might woke up expecting to feel different, but he felt just the same as yesterday. He got up, put on his supersuit to do some morning patrols. He encounters some muggings, though he has been a nagging feeling that there's more going on. He jumps past an alley and sees a vigilante running away from a black bluish-skinned villain with an exposed brain. Have no fear. The vigilante looked up to see the number 1 land between him and that villain. For I am here. He punches the villain in the face with enough force to slam it into the back of the building. Who is this villain? He turns around to question the vigilante, but they were already gone. A sudden spike of anxiety causes All Might to lean his head to the side and sees a fist flying over his shoulder. He grabs the arm and with his other hand punched the villain in the chest, though in his surprise he had used too much power. The villain was embedded in a wall BLD, leaking out of their mouth and in a stump where their arm should be. An arm that All Might was still holding. He looked at it in shock and fear as he dropped it. He quickly got closer to the villain to stop the bleeding and save them, but by the time he got there he saw that the villain had regrown their arm and was sitting there breathing silently. Hey, are you all right? With a hand on their shoulder, he tried to get their attention, but they were unresponsive. Toshinori, they have multiple quirks. Nana's voice appears in his head. All Might, now knowing this was his doing, picked up the body and made his way to UA. A few hours ago, Izuku woke up to his new room in UA. It hadn't hit him until now, but he was in his dream school, though, for both him and his mother's protection. He gets up and goes to kitchen to fix up some breakfast for himself and his mom. He had been doing this since he had been waking up early, and Mom taught him how to. He then went out for a run. He used to do this to train the stamina adaptations, but now it's been a habit, and it helps him clear his mind. When he got back, he found Nizu and an older woman he recognized as the hero recovery girl. They seemed to have been talking to his mom. Midoriya, please have a seat. We've been discussing your schedule while you're here at UA. Izuku sits down next to Mom, eager to know what he will be doing during his time here. All right, we have agreed to a 2-hour lesson with me from Monday to Friday in the morning at 9 a.m. and at 1 p.m. will be quirk training for 3 hours. Though if you want to keep using the gym after hours, then you just need to ask. Any time besides those is free time to whatever you want, though leaving is still a safety risk. All facilities of UA are free to access, including the library. Any questions? No, sir. I'll be in your care. Excellent. Well, Midoriya, you are now officially enrolled in UA as my personal student. This is Recovery Girl, our school nurse, and she would like to run some tests on quirk, seeing how it has changed your body. Later, they were conducting a CT scan on Izuku as his BLD was unable to be tested. It dried out too quickly and needles couldn't pierce his skin after the first few times. Recovery Girl was looking at the scans as they came in. She looked at them in confusion, as while bones were shown, there were no organs, not even a brain. In its place was pure muscle. When she brought the results to the Midoriyas, they were dumbfounded. If I don't have organs, then how do I still breathe and eat? Breathing, I believe, is possible due to habit, and that is how your body intakes oxygen, though your body should be able to adapt to absorb oxygen through your skin if needed. Eating is a bit trickier as we need scans. There are 2 possibilities that are most probable: either any food or liquid you ingest is immediately metabolized at the back of your throat, or a temporary stomach is made to process nutrients ingest. Then how would I be able to think? Is my body full of scattered clusters of brain cells? Possibly, it could also mean each cell can be considered a single organism. As she finishes her reply, a knock is heard from the door. Come in. All Might walks in with a dark humanoid in his arms. All for one. This gets Recovery Girl moving, and she begins examining the unresponsive person. You should leave, this will take a while. The 3 leave. All Might asks Izuku to come with him to the gym, which Izuku agrees to, but need to go get his gym clothes. At the gym, All Might explains. Young Midoriya, when you were in contact with One for All, you had brought it to singularity. The previous holder had spoke to me last night, and have allowed to access to their quirks for the coming battle. Okay, but why am I here? They recommend we use your quirk realm to help teach me how to use their quirks, and as you currently hold the original quirks, it might help you use them. Izuku nods in agreement as the both of them sit with their back to the wall. Izuku sets a timer on his phone to track the time passed in his quirk realm. They both pass out and wake up in a familiar void. Good, we can finally begin. Kudo, my quirk is gearshift. It allows me to change the speed of small object, and with the help from One for All, it should have increased the size and speed. Izuku was thinking about the quirk and the inadequacy of the void for training, as the quirk requires small objects to work. As he was having that thought, a burst of energy came from him, which transformed the void into the gym he used to train at. It was quaint, but it had everything they needed. The second user whistled as he looked around at Jim, while All Might had his eyes wide and mouth agape. Well, that's convenient. Let us begin. For the next 2 hours, All Might trained with the quirk, launching small steel balls at hypersonic speeds like a railgun. They eventually figured out it could be used on their own body, increasing speed for a limited time. All Might was doing a target range when gearshift integrated appeared on a TV screen with a ding. Kudo looks at the screen in curiosity, having heard from Nana of the boy's quirk. An orb flies out of Izuku and transforms into Kudo. The clone was confused to see a clone himself with 2 strangers. Readying himself, he fires small knives at the trio. All Might goes to stop the knives, but as the knives got close to him, they disappear into particles. Seeing this clone, Kudo backs off and asks, "Who are you people? Why does one of you look like me?" "I look like you because I am you. At least a version of you within One for All." This big guy is All Might, the 8th holder, and the child is Izuku Midoriya, whose quirk realm you are in currently. Kudo pauses, taking in the information. Then why am I here? Last I saw was All for One's hand on my head as he took my quirk after the knife that would have hit him failed. Vestige. Kudo was saddened to know exactly how his plan to end All for One's reign had failed. Izuku speaks up. You are here because All for One made a mistake in trying to take my quirk. When he tried, he was brought to this place. He held on to gearshift for many decades, and you escaped his grasp. Then All for One is without his quirks. Why are we standing here and not going after him? All Might answers, because times have changed. It has been a few decades since you've passed. One for All has been passed to me as its 8th holder. We train to bring him to justice. We have his location with the help of a quirk young Midoriya took from him. We plan raid his base in a week. Quirk Kudo pauses to think of what to say. You make sure you kill him. Do not let his body out of sight. One for All's purpose has always been the defeat of that monster. Hopefully the 9th will not have to clean up after our mess. With that, he returns to an orb and flies back to Izuku, and the TV lights up once more. Quirk assimilated. Gearshift velocity manipulation. Vestige Kudo looks at the TV in amusement. One hell of a quirk. Later, All Might and Izuku open their eyes up in the gym. Izuku stops the timer on his phone. It stopped at 15 minutes while they spin around 2 hours in his quirk realm. The time dilation was 1:8 1 minute in the real world to 8 in his quirk. Izuku then picked up a rock and tried to activate his new quirk. The rock launched out of his hand and smashed into bits when it hit a wall. While that was good, it wasn't as good as within the quirk realm. Izuku tells All Might of his findings, and they decided to train in the gym to gain the muscle memory. This continued for the rest of the week, every day training a new quirk. And with the time dilation, they have spent around 11 days in the quirk realm training with the different quirks. Speaking of which, quirk assimilated. FA Gene Kinetic Stockpile. Quirk assimilated. Danger Sense Preemptive Warning. Quirk assimilated. Black Whip Energy Constructs. Quirk assimilated. Smokescreen Smoke Elemental. On the day before the raid, All Might was conferring with his mentor Gran Torino. So Toshinori, have you decided? With a sigh he answered, yes, I have. I will be giving it to young Midoriya. He may already have an amazing and powerful quirk, but he has the will and drive to be the greatest hero, even better than me. Good. Is he ready to receive the quirk? More than ready. Then get to it. Hopefully history doesn't repeat itself. Sir, please don't raise any flags. Later, All Might meets with Midoriya in the gym, and they appear in Izuku's quirk realm for one final session before the raid. Young Midoriya, I would like to have a spar with you. Izuku was surprised. They had been training together for a while, but he didn't expect a spar. If anything, he expected him to spar with Shimura, but they just talked privately for a few hours while he was taking a nap. Are you sure? I haven't fought of your caliber before. Worry not, I'll go light until I see that you can take more. The training room changes into an empty grass field with light winds blowing. The two of them get into position. They stand there, neither moving. All Might looking for tells and Izuku waiting for him to make the first move. All Might lunges forward, appearing immediately in front of Izuku with a right hook locked and loaded. Izuku crosses his arms to block the blow. Izuku is launched 10 steps back, but before he can retaliate, another hook is coming from the left side. Blocking it again send him 8 steps back. This continued until Izuku could tank the hit without moving. Izuku readies a punch fueled by kinetic energy manipulation, kinetic booster, kinetic enhancer, and ultra strength enhancer. It grasses All Might, but it was able to launch him a few meters back. It also gouges a large chunk of the land, which is quickly restored. The fight is taken to the air. The two of them exchange blows faster and faster with more and more power, until Izuku using Smoke Elemental to blind All Might and lands a hit square in his chest, which launches him into a coughing fit. Izuku stops and lands to check on him. He was fine, just got the air punched out of his lungs. Young Midoriya, you are ready. For what? To receive One for All. Izuku would say he was surprised by this, but he had a sneaking suspicion that his All Might has been spending a lot of time with him during the week, but he chalked it up to preparing for the coming raid. Are you sure that I'm the one worthy to hold such power? I am, and with that spar I can fight without worry, knowing that the future is sound for a peaceful world. They both leave the quirk realm. Izuku looked around with quirk sight to make sure that no one was eavesdropping on them. The coast was clear, and he turned to All Might. Young Midoriya, I deem you worthy to inherit my quirk. Izuku waits in anticipation of how the quirk transfer of One for All works. All Might pulls a strand of hair off his head. Eat this. All Might was flying above Hashimi Island, which that man resides on, watching the operation to surround the island with scouting vessels to prevent escape. As they got into position, Izuku, who was next to him, was using quirk sight to try and find the exact location of All for One. He sees a small, flickering red orb near the middle of the island. He tells All Might this, and he flies further up in the sky to fly away, leaving behind a shock wave, disperses some clouds which goes unnoticed by anyone below. All Might looks at the spot Izuku pointed out, and seeing the vessels now in position begins the operation. All for One was laying on the medical bed resting after being examined by the doctor. He was seething as his plans to finally take back what was rightly his had to be delayed. Even one of the Nomu was taken. An alarm sounds through the facility. This surprised him, and he quickly got up to meet the intruder. Before he can get near the door, a familiar face bursts through it. All for One, you evil ends here. He is launched back by an air cannon from the villain. All Might, how nice of you to visit. I do wonder how you got my address, but no matter, you've brought me just what I wanted. All for One rushes to the hero with a speed quirk to punch him with a strength enhancer boosted by spring-like limbs. This blows a hole through the facility into the open air, and All for One flies above All Might, touting his superiority, but that doesn't last long as All Might launches himself at high speed using float and gearshift to punch All for One as he used some body enhancers and spear-like bones to hurt All Might on impact. He is then pushed back a few meters in the air, having not expected the power of the punch to break through his quirks. He turns and looks to the ground, expecting to see All Might, but he is punched in the head, sending him hurtling into the ground. He gets up dazed and looks up to see All Might in the air just like her. Impossible. That infuriating smile plastered on his face. He flies back up to retaliate, which was dodged. This back and forth continues with the both of them hitting each other, Black Whip appearing to negate most of All for One's attacks. What's wrong, All for One? You'd usually be boasting how much more powerful you are. You know nothing of power. The fight got more intense with All Might taking more hits than he did before, even with Black Whip help. Dark beams and lightning can be seen offshore pushing away clouds. They were at a standstill until All Might managed to land a hit with the power of gearshift and half of the collected power from Fa Gene, sending AFO into the ground into a crater. He bloodied struggles to get up as All Might slowly floats down with his cape billowing behind him. This is over, All for One. It's time to give up. You're right. I give. All Might got close to cuff him, but AFO's hand shifts into a blade and tries to stab All Might's heart, but he moved, so it went into his stomach. His arm now embedded in All Might then shifts into a large barbed mass, and using mutilation to increase the damage and to make sure his organs were crushed. Before he could pull his arm out, it was cut off by Black Whip, which kept the arm in place to reduce bleeding. All Might collapsed onto the floor's shredded organs still inside him, along with All for One's transformed arm. All for One lets out a guttural laugh. Ha, you imbecile. Why would you ever trust a word I say? You'll die just as your precious master did by my hand. He receives no reply as black tendrils emerge around the wound to cover it up, some of the arm still exposed. All Might is silent, his signature smile gone, replaced by an empty, expressionless face as he disappeared from sight. All for One was too stunned to move as All Might's hands were already around his head before he saw him. That blank face conveying nothing but All Might's focus on his task. He saw the face which would haunt for the rest of his days, as an insurmountable pressure is felt as All Might's slowly hands closed around him. All for One struggled and clawed for freedom, using every quirk in his arsenal, but to no avail as every attempt was foiled, restrained by black tendrils. Crack, squelch, thud. The top of his head was crushed. The rest of his body fell to the floor limp as BLD poured into the dirt below. All Might collapses on his knees looking at this BLD-covered, brain matter splattered hand. Finally, he had avenged his master. Gran Torino appeared at the scene. Seeing the body of All for One was a satisfying sight to behold, but there was no time to waste. BLD was leaking between the black tendrils as he picked up All Might to get him to safety. The cleanup of the island was a mess. Thankfully, the fight had happened on an island away from the prying eyes of the public. A fake story was drummed up to hide the destruction of the island, a fight between All Might and Toxic Chainsaw. All for One's body was collected and brought to a morgue at Jaku General Hospital to avoid public suspicion of the presented story. The Midoriya were allowed to leave the school, though they still had to stay there as the underlings of All for One are still active. Meanwhile, Under Jaku General Hospital was a lab with a stasis pod holding the body of All for One. The doctor was looking at it in sadness and anger. How had All Might found their base on that island? How was he able to overpower his great master? Never mind, he can make him better, he just needs more material. If only he could use that boy's quirk, his master would have been unstoppable. This thought causes an epiphany. Kurogyri. Yes, doctor. Find Izuku Midoriya and bring him here in anti-quirk cuffs. He is needed to restore the health of our master. Kurogyri disappears into his portal, leaving the doctor alone once again in front of the pod. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.